Well, let's talk about these type of clamps versus this type of clamp here. What should you use on your car? A lot of people are converting these clamps to these ones, and that might not be the right thing to do. Let's talk about why. There are certain circumstances when you can only use this clamp, and there are certain circumstances when you can only use this one, and we're not going to talk about the circumstances when you just can't get anything on these. Sometimes it's easier just to use one of these, and that I'm going to leave up to you on certain circumstances. But most of the time, one of these style clamps works better, and here's why. It puts it constantly under spring tension, and the hose will not leak as often as when you use one of these. Because once you get this one tight, and that hose, as the engine warms up and then it gets hot and then contracts back cold again and gets hot and cold, usually the hoses will start to leak a little bit around these clamps, and generally you need to retighten them. So on some of these, like this is Volkswagen Auto VAG. So it's a lot of times when you have a VAG car, it's really hard to actually get in there to retighten the clamps. So using one of these can be a major downer, and not a really good idea in some circumstances. It just depends on where it is and how difficult it is to locate, and how difficult it's going to be to retighten it or get access to it to put one of these on. But there's a special tool setup that you need to get for working on with these clamps, and most people don't have it. And so I'm going to show you. In fact, I saw another video and the guy only showed one of the tools, so I'm going to show you the total tool set that you need to get. It's really not that expensive. If you buy it on Amazon, these are actually fairly inexpensive. So let's take a look here. What I've got is this little set here. You can get this on Amazon, you can get it on eBay. I don't know which one's cheaper. Maybe I'll put a link in the video. You can check it out and order one for yourself. It comes with all these different types of setup. I'll go through them all. So you have these clamp setups here where it has like an end like this and like this. And this is kind of how they work. You put it on, like this on your clamp. I'm looking through the camera, so it's a little harder for me to do. I want to make sure you guys can see it in frame. And you put this thing on like this. Okay, then what it does is, see how this has a little lever here and it stays open. So now you can just slide that on the thing. You push this lever and it actually releases it like that, and it puts it in place. So all these pliers work the same. This one is an angled one with different ends on it. So you got this thing with this little end in here, so it can get into corners where you can't reach it. You've got, well, this wasn't belong in here, but they got these ones here where they're offset. So it's off to the side. Certain times when that's helpful to use. Then you've got ones where they both sides lock in, where they have like this on both sides. Let me open that up a little bit more. And the most common one I'm going to show you next in a second. So it has like this and like that, and then these things rotate so that you can move the clamp around in whatever position you need it to be in to put it in place. And then they have this one where it's a long one, and what it does is it's on a long reach, so you can go like this and you can clamp that thing down, and you can take this cable and put that clamp wherever you want and release it. So with this tool set, these are actually easier to use and less prone to leaks. That's why a lot of the new cars have them, because they're more difficult to get to. So if you don't have one of these tool sets, check Amazon. They're, I don't know, between 30 and 40 bucks somewhere on there, and it's probably one of the cheapest ways to go. I'll put a link in there for you. You can check it out. They also have them on eBay. But the reason you want these, okay, versus the other ones, let's say you put a hose clamp, like right now I need to put this hose on. So I've got this one, and we'll put one on for you so you can see how it works. I've got to put a hose way back in here, and it goes behind all this stuff. Now when I get done assembling this, I'm putting an engine in this car, so when I get done assembling all this, this is going to be almost impossible to reach to retighten it. So putting on one of these clamps is an absolute must for this. Maybe if you've been using your channel locks and you're wondering, why are these things such a pain? So then the clamp goes on here, and hopefully it doesn't fling off while I'm doing this. But you can move it around, move the position you want, slide it over your hose while it's all compressed, and all I have to do is release this lever, put it in place where it's supposed to go. Hopefully I get the angle right. Sometimes I need to depress it just a little bit more, if you can see that. Now get it in the proper position so that it's between where it's supposed to go, which that's another thing you do with the other clamps a lot of times, that you'll get them in the wrong angle. And then what it does is it just clamps down like that. And what that does is it's constantly spring loaded. So as the engine gets warm and gets cool and gets warm and gets cool, this thing will tend to tighten up. And that same thing with torque to yield bolts. That's why they use those now. A lot of the cars, I know they're a pain. You got to replace them all the time. But the reason they put those on there is because they don't they constantly keep an even tension on it. Same thing with the bolts. The bolts keep an even tension all the time so that you have less gasket leaks and things like that. That's why the cars are lasting longer than they used to, even though they're a lot more complicated now than they used to be. I love the old cars myself. You know, I have a lot of classics. If you watch my other YouTube channel, you'll see I have a channel called Mike Effin Garage. If you want to go check that out, I do a lot of Volkswagen stuff in there. And if you want to go check out that channel, that's cool. And subscribe to both channels. Make sure you like the video. So anyway, but that's a lot of the stuff that you need to know to do the new mechanics on the new cars. Because like, look at this one right here. Try to get in there and put a hose clamp on that. There's a tube that goes in the way right here. You know, to try and get that off with a regular hose clamp is going to be really difficult to do. So I'm going to put that hose on as well. And while it's in place here, before I actually put the front of the car on these new cars, this is a Volkswagen, and you put it into something called service position, which is, if you notice, the whole front of the car is off. And that's service position to be able to work on it. A lot of people realize, they look in their hand and go, how do I get my hands in there? Well, you have to learn how to put the car in service position on some cars and be able to work on them that way, especially in the European cars. If you're working on the Toyota, Honda, stuff like that, they don't have these type of things. And now some people like those cars better, but after you drive one of these, you kind of get addicted to the performance and things like that. And they do last a long time. And if you maintain them properly, they can last a lot more miles even than those other cars. But again, there's difficulties involved with that as well. If you're interested in European cars, there are some definite quirks and differences and things that you have to learn and inspect. Like Scotty Kilmer, he doesn't like them because he's never gotten into working on them. And once you get used to working on them, there's a little bit of a trick to them, but they still are difficult and there's issues, but they're also very pleasurable to drive. So it's all up to you on that. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Make sure you like it. Put your comment in. I'd like to see what you have to say, and hopefully it helps you with your mechanics on your next job. Talk to you in the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe.